All right, we are ready to get started. And just before we get started, I want to let you know that with the council's consent, I'm going to reorder the agenda, and I'm going to move, I'm still scrolling here, I'm going to move the 14A, the fair, up after the consent agenda, so that people who are here for that don't have to wait through the entire meeting. Okay, today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Hello, everyone. It is the City Council's regular meeting. I am calling it to order and letting you know that we may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for discussion and consultation with the city's attorneys for legal advice on any item listed on the following agenda. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Here.
Councilmember Harris, Councilmember House, Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy,
Here.
Councilmember Sweet.
Here. Thank you. Vice Mayor, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
My pleasure. Please stand as able.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you. And our land acknowledgement.
The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. All right. Our first item, 4A, approval of minutes from previous meetings. Council, do you have any questions about any of these minutes? Or a motion to approve them?
Mayor, I move that we approve all of the meeting minutes listed under item 4A on the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up, we have open call to the public. This enables the public to address the council about an item that is not on the prepared agenda. Comments related to items that are on the agenda will be taken at the time that that item is discussed. We do open call to the public twice in a meeting, once in the beginning and the other in the at the end. And the first open call to the public is limited to 30 minutes. And you have 3 minutes. There is a timer here. And if you would, and also under open call to the public, we can't ask questions, answer questions, or have back and forth with the audience. So first up, we have Dennis Givens.
Thank you, Mayor Daggett, Vice Mayor, City Council, staff, citizens. My name is Dennis Givens of the South Side. Happy Health Awareness Day and happy 100th birthday to Jimmy Carter. I went knocking on doors in the South Side, and next to City Hall, a resident named Jim Newberry complained about speeding coming down from the hill of Lowell Observatory. He wants radar speeding signs, and he also mentioned that he wants to build tiny homes on Blackbird Roost where there was an old trailer park. There's already utility posts or something there, so he said that would be a great idea for Habitat for Humanity. Chelsea Thomas, the owner of Plante, wants the city to work with ADOT to change the timing of the lights outside of City Hall. The streets Humphrey, Beaver Street, and San Francisco, she believes the timing of those lights are really off, and she told me to mention that. And the residents on the South Side are complaining about frat houses. A resident asked, "Do we value families or do we value debauchery?" And she wanted me to say that today. And I would just like to take a moment of silence for all the men and women who lost their lives defending our constitutional freedoms. So let's all take a moment of silence, please. And I just want to say, freedom isn't free. It costs people like you and me. Thank you very much.
Linda Thielsen.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Linda Tilson, the Library Director for Flagstaff City and Coconino County Libraries. And I just wanted to introduce you to our new Deputy Director who's going to oversee the city libraries. She is filling the position that was formerly held by Richard Tutwiler, and her name is Jennifer Stanisopoulos. I hope I got that close to right. And she has background as a public library director, a school library director, and an educator. She's coming from Wisconsin to us, and I'm very excited she's here. Would you like to say hello or say a word?
So I want to say I'm just really excited to be here. The city is a just, vibrant, and innovative community with a unique character, and I am really excited to become part of that. I'm also not afraid of the snow and ice and the cold, being from Illinois, Ohio, and Wisconsin, having spent time there. So that doesn't scare me off at all, and I'm just excited to get to know all the people in the city and all the people in the community and do my best to serve them well.
Thank you. Colleen Maring.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm Colleen Maring. I'm the Chief People Officer and General Counsel for Northern Arizona Healthcare. And we had a great conversation with Councilmember Matthews a couple weeks ago, who suggested that we start taking the opportunity to come here and share updates with council and our community through the public comment process. I have no news about the hospital, which is what I know everybody loves to ask us about. We're still looking, and I promise we will share news when we have it. But I did want to share, we've also heard a lot through the Prop 480 campaign and our dialogue with our community that we need to listen and engage more. And so we've taken that to heart. We, both ourselves and through some third-party consultants who are helping us understand our relationship to the community, helping us listen, helping us understand our reputation. We started having individual meetings and small group meetings, both internally and externally. That led to a lot of feedback that we also need to listen to folks who we haven't been in dialogue with. And which is how you hopefully heard and saw recently in the Sun and on the radio and on social media, invitations to participate in focus groups. So we had a great response here in the city of Flagstaff as well as across our region, and those focus groups will be taking place in the next few weeks. So we hope to garner a lot of feedback from those folks who have not been at the table in some of our previous discussions. And I'm looking at Councilmember Matthews, look forward to continuing to come here and happy to share updates as we have them, hopefully more learnings from that listening work that we're doing, which right now is just continue to listen and continue to find voices that we haven't engaged with in the past. So we look forward to that in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick Hingson.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Dick Hingson. Flagstaff resident, lives nearby at 424 West Dale. And I want to speak regarding the noise control amendments proposed for this Flagstaff City Code. I sat through that long discussion here last week and since more closely examined the matter and came to this conclusion. We have then a downtown zoning controversy continuing regarding bar noise. And I independently looked into the city's zoning code, section 10-4-30.040, on commercial zones, which has a section on intent, item 2, initialed CC, for community commercial zone. Okay, so looking into this, I learned that this community commercial zone code section thereby encourages the development of residential uses in addition to commercial uses to provide diversity in housing choices. So it explains logically that the provisions of this zone are intended to ensure that such commerce will be compatible with adjacent non-commercial development and to minimize undesirable effects of heavy traffic and commercial activity. So then this leads to a question, which I hope will be suitably addressed by the time this comes up for vote. It's a question for the patio bar owners and for the council about undesirable effects, which have generated many complaints from the nearby community. The question is, what gives the right to the bar owners to take away the nearby residents' right to peace and quiet, especially when it is contrary to the intent of the community commercial zoning to ensure otherwise? Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Aiden Rutledge and Adriana Fisher.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I was just here, and I would just like to take this opportunity to introduce Aiden Rutledge, who is going to have some amazing, incredible news and a special invite just for you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Aiden Rutledge, as Adriana said, and I'm an intern with the Housing Section. As some of you remember, October is Housing America Month, a time to celebrate the role of affordable housing, the people who provide it, and acknowledge its crucial role in building resilient communities. I'll be back next week to deliver a proclamation acknowledging this celebration, but this week I'm here to tell you about our upcoming initiative in celebration of the occasion and invite you to participate. This year, we want to emphasize the connection between housing and health outcomes, which align with two of our 10-year housing plan strategies. Connect 3.1, which raises awareness of housing security as a social determinant of health, and Protect 2.4, which calls for a public outreach campaign to educate the community about the critical role affordable housing plays in thriving communities while creating a groundswell of support and combating opposition to affordable housing. We will be holding a unique public art traveling door project throughout the month of October, where a door will serve as a canvas for our community members to express what housing means to them, how it has affected them, and or just a vision of their dream home. We're thrilled to announce that the Traveling Doors first stop will be at the Art Walk this Friday, where we will hand out goodies like first aid kits, wildflower and herb seeds, stickers, tote bags, all while promoting our affordable housing programs, housing opportunities for residents at all stages of the housing continuum. The door, painting, and drawing materials will also be available. We invite you and the community to join us at the Art Walk this Friday at 5 p.m. to make your mark on the door and learn about what the Housing Section and our partners are doing to further safe, fair, and affordable housing. This is a fantastic opportunity to engage with the community, foster dialogue about housing and health, and gather diverse perspectives that enrich our project. We believe that this door will not only be a work of art, but a symbol of our collective commitment to solving health and housing inequities. A special thank you to my colleague Adriana Fisher for being such an instrumental part of this project, and to Habitat for Humanity for donating a door to this project. Thank you, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you. Candace Ryan.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I am here today to speak about the noise ordinance. I came in on Teams last week, and I heard some language being said and thrown around that was concerning for me. That would in fact make calling in a noise disturbance more difficult. And I would be lying if I didn't say I felt like some of council is biased towards businesses. It feels like we're out on an island over in my neck of the woods right now. And I also feel like we're being judged for where our house is located. We land where we land for whatever reason. And we had no issue with the tavern for over a year until the business model changed. I also wanted to clarify Northern Arizona Yoga Center. There was a comment about an issue with the classes in the evening. And what that is, because I am aware of that, that was 6 years ago. That's a testament to how long this has been going on. It was workshops that were being done after class hours where organizations or groups would rent out the studio. There was issues during the day because the music was being played during the day at that time where the floor would vibrate. Vice Mayor, you commented when you came out for the decibel reading that it wasn't that loud, and I agree with you. That night, it wasn't that loud. But the intent of the decibel readings was to get variables in how loud it can be and how quiet it can be to find a reasonable decibel level. It was mentioned that businesses are struggling. I've had a store in town, a production company, I have a business now and a nonprofit. I align with businesses too. I adore small businesses, but residents and homeowners are suffering as well. We are struggling too, and I have a hard time believing a business is having a hard time when they can spend $30,000 on legal fees for a citation. Zoning, I've been saying this, I'm gonna echo the other gentleman, over and over and over. This business model does not match the language in community commercial zoning. It just does not. Also, I am going to echo that too, that why do they have the right to take away my peace? For my daughter, we have a right to live in our house. It's the only home she's known. She adores that house. We're not going to move. We have the right to enjoy our home and sleep. And just be aware, noise pollution is a social justice issue. It is more prevalent in lower income areas. So this is a bigger issue. And we've exhausted all options. I have been on both groups for the sound, donated my time, tried to help, and every single route we've taken has failed us. So we're asking for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Wolverton.
Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff, thank you very much. Happy birthday, President Carter. Not the founder of Habitat for Humanity, but definitely a 49-year supporter of Habitat for Humanity. Very, very grateful that he was able to make this day. I want to share some more exciting news about workforce affordable housing with you all. Starting today, we opened up applications for our first 10 starter homes at the Timber Sky neighborhood. This application is open to the public, which is why I'm here at the diocese to remind everyone that whether you're a homeowner or not a homeowner, it is your opportunity to help your neighbor and remind them that they have an opportunity to buy a home with a $1,000 down payment, with mortgage payments under $1,000, with principal savings of $833 a month, with savings annually of $10,000. This is a game changer. This is the graduation out of the housing continuum for many families. And for being in charge of this affiliate for the last 10 years, and only really being able to provide this community 1 or 2 homes a year, I am thrilled that we are on schedule at Timber Sky for 20 homes next calendar year and 20 homes the calendar year after. So thank you so much. Please, if you see our announcements on social media or around town, spread the word. This is our opportunity to help our neighbors. I want to thank the City of Flagstaff and its staff for doing a phenomenal job of working with us, both in community development and with the housing departments. We seem to be moving at record pace when a lot of people complain about processes being too slow. So I want to thank the city and the staff again for their diligence and for their recognition of how important workforce housing is for Flag. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Danielle Adams.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. My name is Danielle Adams, and I'm the Interim Executive Director of the Flagstaff Dark Skies Coalition. I come before you this afternoon with a word of thanks. Last weekend, FDSC hosted its 11th annual Flagstaff Star Party in Buffalo Park on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. Across the 3 days, we welcomed 2,821 people for the completely free event, and we estimate about 2/3 of them were Flagstaff or Coconino County residents. I'm grateful to the mayor and the vice mayor for participating in the Star Party as well. And I and the FDSC board are grateful to the city of Flagstaff for its ongoing support of Dark Skies in northern Arizona and of this particular community event. It's important that we've been able to maintain it as a completely free event for the community, which is exactly in line with our renewed vision and intent to assure that dark skies are available to everyone, regardless of socioeconomic status. And that increases our quality of life. The city of Flagstaff generously supported the Flagstaff Star Party this year through the BBB revenues that were granted to FDSC through Creative Flagstaff. This is a concrete example of how the city's BBB revenues come back to the citizens of Flagstaff. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you next year at the Star Party.
Thank you, Danielle. All right, that was the last, and we will move down to proclamations and recognition. There should be, okay. So I'm going to start with Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So if I can have everyone come down and join us at the edge over here. Hello. All right. October is annually recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic violence is a pattern of behavior of violence and intimidation for the purpose of gaining power and control over an intimate partner. Although progress has been made toward preventing and ending domestic violence and providing support to survivors and their families, important work remains to be done. Domestic violence affects more than 16 million people every year in the United States, including at least 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men. Domestic violence affects people of all genders, sexual orientations, ages, racial, ethnic, cultural, social, religious, and economic groups. Domestic violence within a family increases the risk of other violence in the home, including child abuse. Approximately 25% of all children witness domestic violence during their childhood. Children exposed to domestic violence can experience long-term consequences, including difficulty at school, substance abuse, behavioral problems, and serious adult health problems. The Flagstaff Police Department recorded 1,632 calls for service for domestic violence in 2023. Survivors of domestic violence exhibit amazing courage, strength, and determination in the aftermath of such violence and deserve support and access to culturally responsive, trauma-informed programs and services to increase their safety and self-sufficiency. The City of Flagstaff encourages all community members to work to support survivors of domestic violence and the efforts of community organizations that provide community education and outreach, as well as services and support to survivors of domestic violence. Now, therefore, I, Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Flagstaff, Arizona, and call upon the citizens of Flagstaff to join law enforcement, victim advocacy groups, and other local organizations to make our community a safe and supportive place for all of our families. To further acknowledge and support Domestic Violence Month, the city will raise the Domestic Violence Awareness flag in front of City Hall for the month of October 2024. Oh, picture first, sorry. You should get down here. I'll block you. Oh, we tried that. Would one of you like to say something?
Every year I wind up the appointed speaker and I'm never prepared. So let's just say that doing this work is an honor. And so we appreciate that you all recognize that this is something that a lot of organizations are doing work behind the scenes you might not necessarily see or hear. But we appreciate your support. And truly, once again, it is such an honor to be able to work with these people who are going through such difficult times and to see incredible strength under pressure. So thank you very much.
What is that? Hair. All right, I would like to thank Councilmember House for her help with this proclamation. I think that this probably touches a lot of people in the audience here, and certainly both Councilmember House and I. Proclamation for Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk. Suicide is a national and statewide public mental health problem which occurs among all age groups and across all socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic backgrounds, and is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and the 2nd leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 and 34. More than half of Americans know someone who has thought about suicide. More than 8 million adults report having serious thoughts of suicide. 2.5 million report making a suicide plan, and 1.1 report a suicide attempt. Suicide most often occurs when stressors exceed the current coping abilities of someone living with a mental health condition. The stigma associated with mental illness and suicidality works against suicide prevention by discouraging persons at risk for suicide from seeking life-saving help and further traumatizes survivors of suicide. Many people who died by suicide did not receive effective behavioral health services due to the difficulties associated with accessing services by healthcare providers trained in best practices to reduce suicide risk, prejudices, and discrimination surrounding the use of behavioral health treatment, and the stigma against acknowledging suicidal ideation. Public awareness of the warning signs and the networks available for at-risk individuals are essential to continue lowering the rates of suicide. While there is no single cause of suicide and no single suicide prevention program or effort that will be appropriate for all populations or communities, initiatives based on the goals detailed in the National Strategy for Suicide Prevention to increase access to quality mental health, substance use condition, and suicide prevention services will help prevent suicide. Now therefore, I, Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby declare that suicide is preventable through strengthened public health policy, and we should, as individuals, coworkers, and neighbors, all come together to bring awareness to this issue. And we have someone online or in person? Oh, I'm sorry. If I would have known that you were in person, I would have asked you to come down. I wasn't sure so that I didn't see Kira here, so you hold this, and then we take a picture. Yeah. And then you have to talk because you're holding it.
I brought my emotional support.
This is what I make you do with me.
Okay, so I didn't know I was going to have to talk, but I'm Priscilla Brown, and I brought the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's event to Flagstaff, the Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk. This year marks 10 years since I lost someone very close to me, and in response to that, I brought this walk here to help other people feel less alone. And the whole idea of it is to help people feel like we can kind of break down some of that stigma and make it okay to reach out and ask for help. I think everybody is so brave who goes out and seeks out a counselor, comes to the emergency room, calls Taros, calls the suicide crisis line. All those things are so incredibly brave, and so I'm really proud of this event that we've been able to do every year. And so I'm so happy that this is the first year that you guys have done a proclamation for us here at the City Council meeting, so thank you guys so much. Yes, also come to the Suicide Prevention Walk on Saturday. It starts at 9 at Buffalo Park. Thank you.
All right, next up we have council liaison reports. So let's start with Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. Just real quick, for BPAC, you probably have noticed the Aspen niche is under construction. It's across from the Orpheum Theater, and it will provide bicycle parking for the downtown.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just might note that the Transportation Commission meets this week, and MetroPlan meets on Thursday. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Not too much to report. I was at the Verde Valley, Verde River Watershed Conference in Camp Verde this past week, so I missed the commission meetings that were happening. Our Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Council also had its annual field trip. Councilmember Miranda Sweet and Lori Matthews were with us on that. So was the city manager and deputy city manager. Wonderful trip. I had no idea that what it was we took the railroad down in Cottonwood out to Paulson and back. I had no idea the Verde River and that canyon was so beautiful all throughout there. Wonderful time, great conversations, and a nice opportunity for us to get some catered lectures about the Verde Valley and the Verde River, and not just sort of the general cowboy tourist experience that gets piped into the cabins. So wonderful experience for all of us. Already planning next year's field trip. And meanwhile, I also had the opportunity on behalf of the mayor to welcome the Board of Regents to town. They had their meeting up here in Flagstaff this past week. I was able to provide some comments before their meeting began and was able to hang out at 1899 with the Board of Regents and their whole team afterwards that afternoon. Wonderful relationship building. I think town and gown relations have never been stronger in Flagstaff, and we're all very pleased about that. I'll leave it there.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of mine are looking forward, but today I had the opportunity to tour the Interbasin again with the U.S. Senate Indian Affairs Committee. It came from D.C. and it was very informative and always great information from our staff. Also, this Monday we have the Indigenous Peoples Day, and Tuesday. Oh, 14th, thank you. That's coming up at the Elks Lodge. It'll be the first year that the city is celebrating it as a city holiday. So I look forward to attending that and invite everybody. And then tomorrow's a tourism service day where we're picking up trash tomorrow. So look forward to that as well.
Thank you. The Commission on Diversity, I'm sorry, I'm a little thrown, and adaptive living. We're having the Disability Resource Fair at High Country this Saturday from 10 to 2. And then I think at about 2:15, a couple of members from the commission are leading a kind of a walking audit and accessibility walk of the campus area into downtown. And this is a very active commission, and they're a fun group to work with. All right, next up, we have appointments. And the first up is 8A, Planning and Zoning, and this is for me to make a recommendation. And it's one appointment for a term expiring December 2025. We had, we say this every time, but really, we've got outstanding community members who apply for these commissions with really impressive skills, and I am so proud to be able to nominate Christine Sheehy to a seat on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Aye. All right. Then we move on to Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals, and I believe this is Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to talk to the applicants, and all were wonderful and had great things to offer. I did land on one, and so I would like to nominate Jacob Conger to the Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals with a term expiring October of 2026.
I'll second that. That's the first time I've ever, am I allowed to second? I've never seconded. Thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. So now we're moving down to liquor license public hearings. We are going to take these separately. We have 3 of them. So first I'm going to open the public hearing, and we'll have the staff presentation, and then council can ask any questions that they might have.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Vice Mayor and Council. My name is Nick Almendarez. I'm a sergeant with the Flagstaff Police Department. before you today to present a new liquor license application. This is for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license at Kickstand Cafe located at 719 North Humphrey Street here in Flagstaff, Arizona. This application was filed by Jared Rapinski, who is the agent, Guillermo Eduardo Cortez, the controlling person, and Catherine Shabat, who is also a controlling person. In my investigation, I discovered no derogatory records on the applicants and no current or historical liquor violations on the business. I found evidence the applicants had taken the mandatory liquor license training, and a representative of the business was invited to answer any questions.
Any questions, council? And actually, the city clerk just let me know that we can take these all together if we would like. So let's go ahead and move into the presentation for the second. There's no public comment that I see for this first one.
Okay, the second one is for a owner transfer, Series 7 beer and wine liquor license for Hunan Restaurant, which is located at 1926 North 4th Street here in Flagstaff. This application was filed by June Zhang Yu, who is the agent, Ming Cheng Yu, controlling person, and Sang Xuan Sang, controlling person. And in my investigation, I discovered no derogatory records on the applicants and no current or historical liquor violations on the business. And I also found evidence the applicants have taken the mandatory liquor license training, and a representative of the business was invited to answer any questions.
Any questions, council? No public comment? So please proceed to the third.
Okay, and third, this is for a Series 6 bar liquor license for Embassy Suites, which is located at 706 South Milton Road here in Flagstaff. And this application was filed by Lauren Michelle Mosier, who is the agent, Naveen Dimond, which is the controlling person, and Kumbus Javan Chapman, controlling person. And in this investigation, I discovered no derogatory records on the applicants and no current or historical liquor violations on the business. I found evidence the applicants have taken the mandatory liquor license. And once again, the representative was invited to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? No public comment? All right, so I am going to close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion to forward all three applications to the state with a recommendation for approval, or the opposite.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we forward all three applications, liquor license applications, to the state with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we're moving down to the consent agenda. And just a reminder that we are going to move the fair item to after the consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine unless a member of the City Council expresses a desire at the meeting to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion. The consent agenda will be enacted by one motion approving the recommendations listed on the agenda. Unless otherwise indicated, expenditures approved by council are budgeted items. Council, are there any items that you would like to pull? Then I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve consent items number 10A, B, C, D, and E for approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Okay, so we are going to move up item 14A, future agenda item request. This is a citizen's petition titled Jack Welch Memorial Bridge at Picture Canyon. And would the individuals who submitted this request like to say anything? Or we can move, Yes, please, come on down.
Mayor, council, staff, I'm Karen Malice Clark, and I am a longtime resident of Flagstaff, here tonight to represent the Friends of Jack Welch. And don't we all remember how often Jack would attend council meetings and spread the word about what was happening in our community? Since the one-year anniversary of Jack's passing was last July, it's timely to consider ways to memorialize Jack's many and enduring contributions to Flagstaff. You've received our petition, signed I think by about 50 or so residents of Flagstaff. We would like to propose that the bridge over the Rio de Flag in Picture Canyon be named the Jack Welch Memorial Bridge.
Thank you very much. We have two more speakers. Paul Byer.
Mayor, council, and staff, pleased to be here in favor of having this bridge named after Jack Welch. I'm here representing Friends of the Rio de Flag. Jack was our first president about 15 years ago. So he's part of us, but the real reason, of course, is this bridge is part of the Foots, and Jack was a hero of the Foots. I would guess he led perhaps 200 walk the walks, and at least, and very few people in this room haven't, if you're older than 20, have not been on one of his walks. He wrote at least 200 columns in the Arizona Daily Sun called Walk the Walk. He was a true hero of the Foots. He was, it's also in the Picture Canyon open space that we purchased from the Arizona State Land Department, and Jack was part of the impetus for getting that done. So if anybody deserves this, he does. You know it, but I just want to be on record as this is something we absolutely should do. I guess tonight, seeing Eric Wolverton, I'm thinking, in 20 or 30 years, there's going to be a proclamation for him. His starter home project, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Hasn't been done anywhere else in the United States, as far as I know. So Jack is in that category, but he's not here. Let's remember him. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Kalakaru. Okay, perhaps Mike isn't here any longer. So this item will go through the sustainability, is it sustainability or it's open space? Thank you, Robert. It's going to go through the Open Space Commission, and isn't it, it's two commissions, right? Or is it just open space?
Just open space, yep.
Okay, and then they will come back with a recommendation.
Yep, that'd be great. Yeah, this group has already contacted the open space section and kind of proposed this idea, and they put this proposal together, and we'd be happy to work with them.
Great. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is a no-brainer. Is there, I don't want to set it up where you can't disagree, but.
Mayor, you just need to ask if there are 3 in support, that's all.
Yeah, are there 3?
All 5.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. All right, we are down to 11A. A couple of public hearing items. These we are going to take separately. So I will open the public hearing now, have presentations on the first item, and then council, any questions you might have?
All right, and we ready? Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tiffany Antal, Zoning Code Manager. I'll try to get through all three of these as quickly as possible. This first zoning code text amendment is, I just called it miscellaneous. It actually has a very long title, but I'll try to run through each of these items that we're doing. This amendment is to assist with some general cleanup and just some small problematic items that have been in the code outstanding for a while. First up, we are going to remove the concept plan requirement for duplex dwellings. Right now, in order to just get them straight into building permit, so just a quicker way to get those duplexes moving through our development review process. We will, however, treat duplexes that are outside of recorded subdivisions the same way as we treat single-family homes in those areas. Next up would be accessory structures. We are clarifying the requirements for these. There is a holdover provision that was specific to storage containers, and it made it read that accessory structures were not allowed over a maximum size of 160 square feet, which clearly would be problematic, right? You couldn't have a detached garage or anything like that. So just a small little error that needs to be fixed. I am making some just editorial cleanup in that section as well. Next up, our accessory uses. We've gone back and added in provisions for outdoor sales areas. Those accidentally dropped off in the past, so it's good to put those provisions back in. Home occupations, we are aligning the allowed size of a home occupation with our building code requirements. I would like to note, I have one small edit in this section that'll be you'll see it attached to the final at second read, and that's just a small clarification that home occupations are really home businesses, just bringing it up to the forefront in that text. Next up, the next two parts of this amendment are really taking that basement garages, building stem walls, crawl spaces, and podium parking structures and moving it into our architectural design standards. The reason that we're doing this is the applicability portion. Where this provision sits currently, it's applied to all development in the city, which means it's applicable to single-family homes. By moving it into the architectural design standards, it will no longer apply to single-family homes. It will apply to duplexes and above. This will help with individual single-family home developments that do not have architectural design standards currently applied to them, because what you're seeing here, they generally are architectural design standards. And that is the highlight of the code. Of course, we're required to make findings. The amendment needs to conform to the regional plan. I've gone ahead and added in as well as the 10-year housing plan and the carbon neutrality plan. But essentially, this is about creating greater flexibility in development standards and processes to assist developers and just clarifying and fixing some little small outstanding problems in the code. Our goal here always is, and first and foremost, is to facilitate the development of all housing types, and as under the carbon neutrality plan, create housing options. The amendment provisions are not anticipated to be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare. None of these building provisions change what's in building code or change any of those standards. So again, we're bringing things into alignment. And the amendment is internally consistent, so we're fixing a couple small little problems in there. So the recommendation, both staff and the Planning Commission recommend the City Council, in accordance with the findings, approve PZ 240008, concept plan review, accessory structures, accessory uses, home occupations, basements, basement garages, building stem walls, crawl spaces, and podium parking. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions? Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, just a comment. Tiffany, I sent you a whole list of questions over the weekend, and you answered it all by yesterday, so I really appreciate that, and you addressed them all professionally and completely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Tiffany, it warms my heart to see us doing things to make it easier and less clunky for developers to come in and develop the much-needed housing that we are in crisis to have. So I just really appreciate all your work and your team, the staff, to put this together, and it's just another step to get us closer to our goals. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And there must be communities in Arizona that do not allow ADUs. Is that why the legislature passed the legislation requiring cities to allow them?
Yes, we're not on that particular amendment just yet, but yes, there are a lot of cities that actually don't allow accessory dwelling units. And in fact, Tucson recently, only in the last 2 years, adopted, and it's because Tucson is infamous for their casitas. It's almost a part of their architecture and has been for a long time. But yeah, they just went through the process of creating an accessory dwelling unit, and they let me tag on their tailcoats of presentations all of the time. But yeah, we definitely get to be one of the outstanding models in terms of accessory dwelling units.
Okay, council, any questions? And no public comment? Okay, so I am going to close the public hearing on this item, and I will entertain a motion from council.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we read resolution number 2024-37 by title only.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-24-00008 concept plan review, accessory structures, accessory uses, home occupations, and basement garages, building stem walls, crawl spaces, and podium parking.
Thank you. And I will entertain another motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move to read ordinance number 2024-22 by title only for the first time.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff zoning code, Title 10, Flagstaff zoning code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-24-00008 concept plan review, accessory structures, accessory uses, home occupations, and basement garages, building stem walls, crawl spaces, and podium parking, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. All right, so moving down to item B.
Thank you so much again.
I am opening the public hearing. Now you may present.
Thank you so much. Tonight I have before you a very small amendment to our zoning map amendment process, which is the long name for a rezoning. But there was a recent legislative action that requires us to put timeframes in our zoning code for how we process these zoning map amendments. So we will be amending our administration procedures and enforcement chapter to add in these timeframes. As well as amending our protest procedures. There was a small, in this larger legislative, there was a small amendment to protest procedures on rezonings. So neighbors adjacent to the rezoning case can protest. Government properties get removed, government-owned properties get removed from those percentages or votes. But basically the time frame is we have 30 days to determine if a zoning map amendment application is complete. And then we have 180 days in which from the time we decide that an application is complete, we have 180 days for the city to approve or deny. That means city council. So that's not the staff approval. It is going to be an interesting process to watch this evolve, but I know that the interdivision staff team is all over it, and they're going to get it accomplished in those timeframes. So that's as simple as this amendment is. Again, the findings, greater flexibility in development standards. I don't know that this is really necessarily creating greater flexibility, but we are following state statute requirements. And we do have a requirement that this be adopted by January 1st, 2025. We do not expect the amendment provisions to be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, and welfare of the city. And the proposed provisions are intended to comply with Senate Bill 1162. Lastly, the amendment is internally consistent and will help us implement the required zoning map amendment process. Both staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the City Council approve Zoning Code Text Amendment PZ 24-00010 zoning map amendment process. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, questions? I'm sure that there's been a discussion internally about what we do if something comes in when City Council isn't having meetings in July and August, and you still think that we can meet those deadlines.
We're going to have to figure it out.
All right, there we go. All right, so I will entertain a motion.
Mayor.
Oh, no. Before I do that, what I'm going to do is make sure there's no public comment, and then I'm going to close the public hearing. Now I will entertain a motion.
I move to read resolution number 2024-38 by title only.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, City Clerk.
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-24-00010 zoning map amendment process.
Thank you. And another motion?
I move to read ordinance number 2024-23 by title only for the first time.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I have a quick question.
Oh.
What happens if we don't meet the deadlines? Do we die or evaporate or what?
It goes into effect regardless.
If we don't take an action, then the zoning request is approved without action. Is that correct?
It doesn't officially amend the zoning code. We do need you to go through the process, but when the zoning code does not comply with state law overrules the zoning code. So that provision.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you. I think we're going to take a vote on this.
And into it. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title 10 Flagstaff Zoning Code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-24-00010 zoning map amendment process, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
All right, I will open the public hearing on the third item.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go a little bit slower on this one. So tonight I have before you zoning code amendment on our accessory dwelling unit provisions. This amendment includes modifications to our code in response to House Bill 2720. The recently adopted legislation requires municipalities with populations greater than 75,000 to allow ADUs on all lots or parcels that allow for single-family dwellings. We have allowed accessory dwelling units since 2007. We have been counting, or we've been figuring out how many units we've been permitting since about 2018. Just so you know the numbers, on average, we are doing about 30 accessory dwelling units a year. For comparison, we do, in that same time frame, we've done about 260 single-family homes. So it is a smaller fraction of the overall homes that we're permitting. The legislation states that if a municipality fails to adopt development regulations as required by this legislation on or before January 1st, 2025, ADUs shall be allowed on all lots or parcels zoned for residential use without limits. It is really important to point out that there are no exceptions for historic districts made in this legislation. So of the requirements, we will be changing to allow, we need to allow both one attached and one detached ADU as a permitted use on any lot or parcel that allows a single family dwelling. One additional ADU may be permitted on a lot or parcel that's greater than 1 acre when the ADU is a restricted affordable dwelling. Currently, the zoning code only allows for 1 ADU. I can tell you, though, that within the last year that I've heard rumblings from our housing division that we should think about adding the addition of an additional accessory dwelling unit. The state just happened to beat us to it. The amendment also to allow an ADU that is 75% of the gross floor area of the single-family dwelling or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. So you would need just about a 1,300 square foot home to get that full 1,000 square feet. Currently, the zoning code only allows detached ADUs up to 800 square feet on lots or parcels that are at least 6,000 square feet or greater, or up to 1,000 square feet on lots or parcels over an acre. That allowance is not dependent upon the size of the home. The amended code will still allow an accessory dwelling unit of 800 square feet on a lot or parcel, regardless of the size of the home. So this is where we stray from the legislation. This is the one place we're straying. And the reason is because we were already a little bit more lenient in some respects, and we want to maintain that leniency. We would also not like to make existing accessory dwelling units legal nonconforming. And lastly, we do not want to run into Proposition 207 issues. So we feel that we can incorporate both, and whatever works best for the property owner, they can use either option, whether it's the percentage of the house up to 1,000 or by right just the 800. Next up, we need to allow the long-term lease of all of the units. That includes the single-family dwelling and ADUs, all individually. For a long time, when this code was originally adopted, you could only really rent the whole property, or you couldn't rent both the house and the ADU separately. You could rent them together, or if you lived in the house, you could rent the ADU. We did change that as an incentive practice, so we had already started allowing the long-term lease of the units individually if you agreed to not short-term rental them. So this really, while is a change in the code, is really not a very significant change for us because we had already built it in as an incentive. We need to remove additional parking requirements for accessory dwelling units. The bill is very clear that we cannot require additional parking spaces for accessory dwelling units. The zoning code currently requires 1 additional parking space for an ADU. We need to remove architectural compatibility requirements for accessory dwelling units. The zoning code currently includes architectural compatibility requirements as well as specific findings that include compatibility standards, so we will be removing those. I would like to note that we don't require other accessory buildings to meet compatibility standards. So if you want to build a garage and you want to make it out of brick and your house is lap siding, we don't have a standard that says you can't do that. But we do if it's an accessory dwelling unit. We don't require architectural design compatibility for a shed if you want to put in a shed in your backyard. But we do right now if it's an accessory dwelling unit. I would also state that in some subdivisions where there are CCNRs and architectural design standards, those would still apply. CCNRs can exceed our zoning code allowances. Next up, we need to remove the restrictions for ADUs that are more restrictive than those for single-family dwellings in the same zoning district regarding height, setbacks, lot coverage, or building frontage. So we have always allowed accessory dwelling units, detached accessory dwelling units, that were less than 16 feet in height to be as close as 5 feet to the side and to the rear property line. We will now need to allow those at the full height as the same single-family dwelling. The concern here is specifically our town site neighborhood standards, but those already do have reduced building heights overall. We just can't treat the accessory dwelling unit different than we treat the principal dwelling. So this will basically allow two-story accessory dwelling units in closer rear setbacks than people have seen in the past. And you could have a two-story ADU where you have a single-story home. For the most part, we've never counted the ADUs towards lot coverage, and we don't have any really specific building frontage standards. And then lastly, we are removing the requirement for a restrictive covenant concerning the rental of the property with an ADU. The zoning code currently requires the restrictive covenant that states the property owner shall occupy either the primary residence or the ADU, or if the property owner rents or leases a property with both primary residence and an ADU to a third party, then neither the primary residence nor the ADU shall be subleased. So we won't be doing that. All of those provisions are still in code, however. So the incentives that we've already built in place basically remain the same. We just won't be requiring the covenant anymore. And the purpose of the covenant is to automatically inform a new buyer through that title search what the zoning requirements are. But we just won't have that available to new homeowners in that regard. So the findings, we'll go through those. So the proposed amendment is consistent with the regional plan. The regional plan does include a specific policy about promoting accessory dwelling units where appropriate. The 10-year housing plan has continued to evaluate and amend the current accessory dwelling unit zoning code standards with the goal of increasing supply. And the carbon neutrality plan has the create housing options for households at all income levels and family sizes. The amendment provisions are not anticipated to be detrimental to the public health interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare, and the proposed provisions are intended to comply with the requirements of House Bill 2720. They're, again, internally consistent and utilize the existing format of the zoning code. So staff recommended that the Planning and Zoning Commission, in accordance with the findings, make a recommendation to the City Council for approval. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 5-1, recommends that the City Council deny zoning code text amendment with concerns over the removal of the parking requirements, the architectural compatibility standards, the impacts on historic districts, and lastly, sort of equity concerns. We talked at for a little bit about the cost of building accessory dwelling units for individual homeowners is fairly expensive. So we were talking about the likelihood of, a homeowner being able to come in and finance not just one, but two. So the likelihood that individual homeowners are going to be able to cover that cost of two ADUs will be tough because the individual cost of these units is fairly high. I would like to note that the original vote was for approval was a 3-3 vote, which is a tie vote, which means that that motion is denied. And so the response revote, the commission is very much aware that these provisions will go into place regardless based on this statute, but they did really want to be able to have that ability to express their concerns and their ability to not work through with the public, right? Because we haven't gotten a lot of time to process and go through this amendment. In terms of parking, that big concern is, we don't allow overnight parking 5 months of the year on our streets. And so they're just, having more time to work through those issues, I think the commission would have really appreciated being able to work through some of those things that are tougher. So they absolutely understand what is before you and the why, but they wanted to express those concerns and hope that the state is more open to suggestions in the future. I hope I got that right. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to
Can you
answer
repeat
them.
that last sentence?
That the legislature will be open to suggestions, more suggestions from local jurisdictions in the future.
Yeah. I would hope that too. It would be, I think we could do great things if we could work together and figure out some changes that work for cities. All right, so any questions, council? We do have public comment. Councilmember Matthews.
Tiffany, can you explain what the, and I think you tapped on a little bit, but I was still confused about the equity concerns. I understand that not everyone who owns property can afford to put an ADU, but I'm not sure how that fits into this amendment.
I went back and I listened several times to the comment, and I think it's really hard for me to nail down exactly. I thought I really understood it in the moment at the time. But I think the concern is maybe that, individual homeowners who are already trying to work through a mortgage really won't be able to afford putting in accessory dwelling units. I mean, I'm gonna say I've looked at the cost myself, it's pretty expensive. And that without incentives from the city, I think that was also an important part of the comment, that the city should look towards some incentives. And then, of course, the next thing on the agenda that came after me was sustainability's program to create model plans for accessory dwelling units. So hopefully that's gonna help.
And I was going to bring that up because Nicole and I have been talking about this since before I ran for office. So I know it's coming. I missed the last meeting, but I know they're going to talk about those incentives. But, the other concerns are valid. The equity one, it's like I can't afford a pool either, but I own a home. So I don't understand the concern about that. Not everyone can build additional revenue earning structures, but I don't know that we eliminate it for all because some people can't afford it, because some people can't put tennis courts in their backyard or pools or whatever, a pergola. That doesn't mean that nobody should be able to if they can afford it. So, and I think the program that sustainability has been working on for 2 years that I know of will help eliminate some of that cost, and I hope that comes forth soon. So that was my only concern, that I didn't agree with that on the P&Z committee.
Sure. And I apologize to that commissioner if I got it wrong. That was me trying to synthesize that comment, so.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Tiffany, the concern about we can't add any parking additional requirements, isn't that rule based on the state legislation?
Yes,
So we don't really have a choice on it.
that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Additional questions? I want to make sure that I read it and heard it correctly. So this takes away the part that we were so adamant about in terms of short-term rentals.
So essentially what the text amendment says is that you can short-term rental your accessory dwelling unit, but you need to live in the home.
Okay.
So that's
the new
still
rule?
in there. That's built into our incentive. That
Right.
remains in code. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, Councilmember Matthews.
And just to add on to Councilmember McCarthy, again, this amendment that we're talking about irregardless of what P and Z, feels about it or how we feel about it, it's a state law. I mean, we can't just say we don't want to follow the law, correct?
That might not be a question for me to answer directly. Might be a question for Sterling. But I would say there is one space in this amendment where we stray, and that is from the legislation, and that's on that 800 square foot size.
And to be honest, that would be a question for upstairs.
You were going to say that.
Any additional questions? I'm going to take public comment. First up, we have Mary Norton. Thanks for being here with us, Mary.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Mary Norton. I do serve as the Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as I'm a full voting commissioner on the Open Spaces Commission as their P&Z liaison. These are my personal remarks, and I do not speak on behalf of the P&Z Commission. However, my remarks will naturally lend to some context to the outcome of the matter when it came before P&Z, and I have to say that Tiffany did a good job in summarizing that. I am 100% supportive of ADUs, as is anyone I've had this discussion with. Prior to retirement, I worked on the marketing of the first ADUs in new subdivisions here in the city. Flagstaff is a wonderfully progressive city, and we've been far ahead of the state in allowing and encouraging ADUs as a means of providing creative housing solutions as well as living environments for multi-generational living. There is exciting work being done that you mentioned by staff to create pre-approved model plans for ADUs, which I, as well as everyone on our commission, pretty much overwhelmed Genevieve with in our enthusiasm to volunteer on her selection committee. What is before you is, as was discussed, a necessary change to our code due to new legislation. However, as well-intended as it may be and necessary for many other more restrictive cities and towns in Arizona, it also removes our local oversight in some important areas that will likely create some unintended consequences. Once again, the broad approach of the state legislature down south has attempted to create a one-size-fits-all law that doesn't serve our best interests here in Flagstaff. In this law and the requirement to change our codes, I find it irresponsible to not be able to have some provisions and guidance for the historic districts, nor even the slightest architectural guidance for minimum architectural compatibility to surrounding structures, and the removal to even have some code guidance for the effects and ramifications of parking when it's possible to have 2 ADUs and a single-family home, creating up to 3 households on a lot. Regardless of my opinion and the recommendation of P&Z and even your discussion and decision on this agenda item, the legislation does go into effect. But what I wanted to provide you with my statement, which is in alignment with the P&Z intentions behind the recommendation to deny, is to provide you and staff the input and the backing to have those discussions with legislators and lobbyists and the powers that be, to continue to remind them that we deserve the ability to do what is best for our own communities and to tailor the nuances of legislation to our needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler Denham.
Hello. Sorry, I haven't talked to anyone today. No meetings, just working on the computer. Hello, Mayor and Council members. My name is Tyler Denham. I'm a resident of the Southside neighborhood, and I'm here to speak in favor of the ADU ordinance. The 10-year housing plan calls for increasing ADU production as they are a naturally affordable form of housing accessible to lower-income residents. And I think this ordinance is a great step towards that goal. I'm particularly excited for the provision eliminating parking mandates, as research shows those are a poison pill for ADU construction and aren't even the most effective way to manage residential parking demand. And it's worth noting on that item that the 10-year housing plan and carbon neutrality plan already called for reevaluating parking mandates in service of their respective goals. I know there's a bit of discontent with how this ordinance came to be in response to state action, which I empathize with, but judged on its own merits, it's a very good ordinance that in conjunction with some of the other actions that we're taking, like the pre-approved ADU plans, will really do a lot of good help with Flagstaff's goals around affordable housing. The ordinance after this is passed will actually be quite in line with similar work that was done in California just a few years ago that resulted in like a 10-fold increase in ADU construction. I don't think we'll see that in Flagstaff because Flagstaff was already had a fairly strong ordinance, but I think this will produce a lot of housing in other cities that were much more restrictive. Oh, and a fun fact, the provision in the ordinance saying that you can require that the ADU not be a short-term rental if the primary structure is not owner-occupied. That was actually inspired by Flagstaff's approach towards short-term rentals. So just a fun little fact. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Tyler. All right. I am going to, there's no additional public comment. I am going to close the public hearing. Council, do you have any final thoughts before someone makes a motion? Then I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we read Resolution 2024-39 by title only.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-24-00134-accessory dwelling units.
Mayor, I move that we read Ordinance 2024-24 by title only for the first time.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title 10, Flagstaff Zoning Code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-24-00134-accessory dwelling units, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. All right, we're moving down to discussion items. 13A, thank you, Tiffany. 13A, discussion and direction, regional plan modification to allow the option to provide water and sewer service outside the urban growth boundary upon City of Flagstaff Council approval. And I saw Sarah walk in. Are you? Oh, that's right. I received a note before this that you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mayor, and I would invite us to have Sarah Dector speak to it because she is so much more closer to this than I am. So I just wanted to offer some comments in preface of that. This is a bit of a placeholder on Council's agenda. We had to set this with, at the time we were uncertain as to whether this particular provision, policy provision within the context of the regional planning efforts would move forward with approval. Since that time, this matter has been in front of the Water Commission, and then as of last night, of course, subsequent to the posting of this agenda, we talked about this with the Regional Planning Committee. And both of those entities, and certainly together with staff and legal counsel, we all are united in feeling that this is a good proposal to see this level of flexibility instilled within the urban growth boundaries. So we don't, at this point, want to foreclose any discussion by council. Just wanted to alert you that we think the matter, at least up until now is, there's consensus to it, and there may not be need for discussion unless you have questions or comments. Thank you.
So you're saying there is no presentation? Just if council has questions?
Yes, I think we're prepared to answer any questions, and this is one for Sarah. Again, she's closer to this than I am, but we're at your pleasure here, but.
All right. Councilmember McCarthy.
So if proposed, would this, if implemented as proposed, would this mean that anybody outside the growth boundary would have access to sewer and water, or would it have to be approved on a case-by-case basis? Would it have to go through council, or would it go through some commission? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. What this means is that if there is a property owner outside the urban growth boundary that would like to request water and sewer services, which following water policy that I can let Shannon Jones, our water services director, come up and answer questions about, requires a good amount of infrastructure building at the cost of the property owner and coming online with services, that process would no longer require a major plan amendment, and that the Water Services Division, upon the approval of the new regional plan, would come up with new procedures for that. Their current procedures for requests outside the urban growth boundary follow the current plan. What this would do is give us the option of considering more flexibility in those water service procedures.
Okay, so there would still be a city process to say, in this case, yes, in this other case, we can't do it because of whatever reason. That makes a lot of sense.
Mayor, Councilmember McCarthy, really nothing to add, but no, that's exactly the intent. It's not automatic, but it opens a process in the event that makes sense for the city of Flagstaff.
And Sarah, you indicated that it wouldn't require a major plan amendment. Would it require a minor plan amendment, or when you said separate process, you're talking separate from the minor plan amendment process?
It could still require a minor amendment depending on if they are also requesting a change in their land use category. So if it's, I have a single family home on a large lot and I just want water and sewer on it, that might not require a plan amendment, but it would still go through a procedure that Water Services sets up that's consistent with the approach in the regional plan. And that would, of course, come to you for review, go through a staff review. So we don't have all that worked out. We're just trying in the 60-day public review to get public feedback on that conceptually so that we know if we have enough support to move forward with it.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. So where is the urban growth boundaries?
Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, just give me 1 second and I can show that.
And my question kind of goes with that. We're talking even, so the urban growth boundary is within the city limits, the corporate city limits of the city, and we're talking about possibly allowing individuals to hook up to our services outside of the corporate city limits?
The catalyst for this, if I may, is that much of the urban growth boundary, and now you can visualize it on this map, does occur within the corporate boundaries of the city. I'll summarize it this way and invite Sarah to either correct or add to my comments. This is a way to allow, via a process that will be a public process, to see water and or wastewater service provided to those beyond the urban growth boundary within the corporate boundaries of the city.
So we're only talking about within the corporate boundaries of the city. We're not talking about outside.
For areas, you can see on the map that Shannon just pulled up, the blue line is the urban growth boundary and the red line is our city limit. There are areas of the urban growth boundary outside of city limits. Typically, we require that those areas be annexed if they're in the urban growth boundary. But there are some areas like the area along the Schultz pipeline, north of Elks Lodge, that have requested water services and could be provided water services with this, but that would probably be something that would come to City Council and the Water Commission. It wouldn't be necessarily a staff decision, right, Shannon?
That is correct.
And I remember one of the floodings out there by 4th Street, you know, in the older area. Aren't some of those houses, they're not hooked up currently to our water and sewer, correct?
Yes, but those areas are inside the urban growth boundary now.
Okay.
The urban growth boundaries, yeah, they're a county island. A better example is maybe the Rain Valley neighborhood that is to the east of the Wildcat Reclamation Treatment Plant. That area, because we can't serve it with sewer, has been outside of the urban growth boundary since 2001. And that's an area that there's occasionally requests to improve roads, or they would like more city services because they are within the city limits, but we don't provide it because it's a rural area that we intend to keep pretty rural in character, largely because of the density of cultural resources in that part of the city.
And what about the maintenance? Is that you are intending to build in those costs to your capital improvements plan? Would they be charged any extra? I mean, I heard you say that they would be charged to actually bring the infrastructure into their property. And then who handles the maintenance?
Yes, Mayor. So the expectation would be is that if an area is already served by our infrastructure, then absolutely we maintain that. For the expansion of the infrastructure, the expectation would be is that that would be funded, could be funded multiple ways, but not by the ratepayers of Flagstaff. It could be funded by the property owner, or there's some other funding mechanisms. But either way, that infrastructure would be paid for separately, and then handed over to the city to operate and maintain. At that time, the individuals connected to that would pay their capacity fees, right, that buy into the system, and then they would pay their monthly service fees, which would cover the cost of maintenance of that system, just like the people currently on our infrastructure.
Council, additional questions, comments, thoughts? I watched the regional plan meeting last night, and I didn't hear a lot of opposition to this. I heard some questions, because I think the question was coming up about the corporate boundary versus the urban boundary and property taxes, but we're talking about people who already pay city property taxes, and we've established that we're talking about them paying for the, it would be like a developer developing a subdivision and paying for all of the infrastructure going to each individual home.
Yes, Mayor, that's what we would expect. That would be the typical scenario that we would bring before council for review.
Okay, nodding. That was probably the easiest piece of a meeting that you've had, Sarah, in the last year and a half.
And thank you for that, Mayor.
Okay, so moving on to open call to the public, and I don't see any public. So informational items, 2 from Mayor, Council, and staff, and future agenda item requests. Let's start with Councilmember Matthews.
I have nothing today, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, 2 things. One real quickly, it was great to see Danielle come out today to introduce herself as the new interim director. I presume she's going to be the full-time director of the Dark Sky Alliance. I just wanted to sort of put out there that I'm proud of my role in making that position happen. There were some early discussions between me and Chris Luganbiel about the future of the Dark Sky Coalition. And I suggested to him that he come to a couple Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Council meetings to watch and see how they're run. And he did do that, and we had some great conversations afterwards, and he was invited to discuss logistics with the CPAC director. And it's really nice to see the new evolution of the Dark Sky Alliance come to fruition. I think it's going to be a much more sustainable and much more powerful organization moving forward. And the other thing is, I don't know if this rises to a fair, but I'm wondering if we need to have a conversation about pedestrian train deaths. I'm really alarmed that we're dealing with our 5th, I believe, announced pedestrian strike within the past month or two. I think that rises to the level of needing to be at least looked at and for a discussion to happen. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. But we should be scratching our heads and trying to figure out if there's anything within reason that we can do to maybe get on top of that. So just some thoughts for you, City Manager. I invite you to use your own discretion on how to proceed with that.
I believe we'll be getting a presentation, right? I asked about it as well, and there are some things in the planning, so I believe we're going to get a presentation from engineering, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry to step on that.
No, thank you for bringing it up. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Jimmy Carter was born 100 years ago today, so I just want to say happy birthday.
Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Today I was on a large meeting and tour with the NRCS chief, County Flood Control District, and several staff to talk about the status of our flood mitigation efforts. It was a great meeting. Friday, I'll be attending the ribbon cutting celebration for the Interbasin Waterline Project, as well as the firefighter graduation. And I have a piece of hopeful good news. I got my bike stolen. It was locked up last Friday, and I found it on social media. A Good Samaritan reached out to the public saying that he found a stolen bike and whose bike was it, and lo and behold, it was mine. And I want to thank Joshua for posting that and being such a good person. I want to thank Julie Lead for giving me her lender bike, and I want to thank our police department for helping me get the bike back to me and going above and beyond their call of duty. Thank you.
The one time that social media was used for good.
It's a crazy story.
So I too was at this meeting today and the tour, and I hadn't seen some of the county projects since a couple of years ago, and it was pretty astounding what they've done out on the east side of town. And then we had to cut it short to come to executive session, so we didn't get to tour the city's projects, but very, very interesting. And I've got a couple of things. I spoke to alumni at NAU for their Lumberjack Thrives. Thanks to Heidi Hansen for getting me involved in that. I always love talking to students. Councilmember Sweet and I had a great visit with Levitate Adventure Park, and I'd like to suggest that we have a council meeting there because that would be fun. I was able to have a meeting with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness with our housing director, Sarah Dar, and she knows so much about housing. I love to sit in meetings with her and listen to her talk about all the laws, what we're able to do in Arizona, what we're not able to do, what we are doing. She's just, she's so knowledgeable and a rock star. So that was awesome. And city manager, do you have anything?
Real fast, Mayor and Council, thank you, and thank you for the meeting. You know, we pulled the noise ordinance discussion off the agenda after it was set, and we did so just to allow for a little more time to see this process go forward. It is coming back your way. You'll see it soon. We just want to make sure there's a good opportunity and for proper vetting. We appreciate the directions given a week ago when it was in front of you, and you can expect to have that on an upcoming agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're adjourned.